Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It has been a long summer, but we are now here with another season of All Star, a Husky Sports podcast. I am Skyler Kiselllus. I am a sports reporter here at the Northern Star, and I am joined by Edison Miller, who also goes by Eddie. He's our assistant sports editor here. Eddie, just tell us how you're feeling about this upcoming year and just how it feels to be an assistant sports editor after about a year and a half now, right?
Yeah. I was a sports reporter for a year and a half, covering mostly women's basketball and men's golf. So it's awesome to be able to get the step up to be able to be an editor and be in the position of actually posting the content to the website and having more control and over what goes on into the website.
I love to see Eddie. I remember you've been an up and comer in this staff, so it's good to see you finally get the role you really do deserve it. And now you're co-host on All Star. So you want to tell our audience a bit about what All Star does here?
Yeah, so All Star basically just provides context about NIU athletics to all the students who may not follow it as closely as we do. So obviously at the Star, we do cover all NIU programs. So on this podcast, we'll be talking about all the fun things that NIU athletics does, all the success, and we know all the failure. And then also, of course, we'll be talking about the professional sports leagues as well. We're both avid NFL fans, NBA fans, NHL fans. I'm not the biggest MLB fan, but we love sports.
Yeah, we are all about sports here, and, we got a lot of sports to cover this season. We have a few sports starting up this fall. We got football, volleyball, men's and women's soccer, men's and women's golf, and pretty soon cross country. So just like that, fall sports season is just about to roll in. So one of the bigger storylines of this upcoming fall season is obviously who succeeds Rocky Lombardi as QB1 for the NIU Huskies. Now, I know that's one that major outlets have been talking about, and I know that's one of the biggest question marks heading into the fall, as football is obviously one of the more anticipated sports here on campus. So, Eddie, you wanted to throw out the three names that NIU head coach Thomas Hammock has put out there for who's in the race to take over for Lombardi.
Oh, yeah, of course. So first, the returning Ethan Hampton, who has seen minutes, is the only of the three quarterbacks to have actually played for NIU over the past 3 seasons, I believe.
That's correct.
He is a redshirt junior. And then we have Jalen Macon, who is a transfer from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And then finally, Josh Holst. And those are our 3 options for quarterbacks going into the fall.
Now, going into these past spring practices, it was more or less assumed that Ethan Hampton would be the de facto starter. He sits behind Rocky Lombardi for 3 seasons, though in the time he has seen action on the field, he hasn't been stellar. I mean, we have to think about his record. I believe he's 0-5 as NIU's starting quarterback. Now, I do have to give him credits. Some of the opponents he's had to face have been pretty tough. His first ever starts was in 2021, the year NIU won the MAC. They host Western Michigan in a pretty cold match showdown. I had to leave at halftime. It was so cold. And, he didn't have a great game. And then on the other side of the ball, you have Caleb Bellaby and Sky Moore just raining touchdowns on the defense. So it's one of those more things where he's just trying to shake off the jitters of that first starting experience. And then 2022, we all remember Rocky Lombardi gets hurt in the Vanderbilt game, and Ethan Hampton has to come in his stead. And then he ends up losing the Vanderbilt game. He does make it a close one against Kentucky. I believe they're the 8th team in the nation.
And they kept that one within 8 points as well. They even had like an onside kick at the end, a chance they could have taken it back and won that game.
Yeah, they could have had a chance to upset an SEC team on the road. And then the week after, we had the Ball State game. That was where Ball State was at the time their 3rd largest comeback in Ball State history against us. Harris really has a fantastic game. Ethan Hampton does well enough. It seemed like the defense just kind of surrendered most of those points there. And then Toledo, homecoming, 2022. He throws 4 interceptions to now Philadelphia Eagle, who's the first-round pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah, very disappointed they did not show that at the NFL Draft to give us our airtime.
Yeah, we should have had some airtime there. And then he didn't really see any starting action, though he did come in Lombardi's relief during the Nebraska game where we were blown out in Lincoln. But so he has the most experience of the bunch. This spring, he's had his moments. I mean, but this quarterback race is still very narrow. Obviously, we bring in a transfer in from Arkansas Pine Bluff, as Eddie mentioned, Jalen Macon. He's a 6'5", 230-pounder, so he's got some build to him. And then we have Josh Holst. He spent last season as NIU's compete team quarterback, as more of like it's kind of like the scout team for an NFL team. So, Eddie, you want to break down kind of like what Jalen Macon brings to the table in this QB battle?
So yeah, Jalen Macon. This is a big guy. He's 6'5" and 230 pounds. He does bring that dual threat ability that Rocky Lombardi did possess, but not. I don't think that was necessarily Rocky Lombardi's identity.
Yeah.
But so at Arkansas Pine Bluff, he had a longest rush of 47 yards, but he played season in only 6 games played. He averaged 3.1 yards attempt, and he actually didn't get as much time as I thought he did. Last year, in 6 games played, he had 61 completions on 92 attempts, a productive 66% completion rate, and had 634 passing yards with 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. So he didn't get too much playing time, but he was in college for 2 years.
Yeah, and from what I read about Macon, I know he won the starting job at Arkansas Pine Bluff this past season. But one of the biggest things about that is so he gets a few games starting in. I believe he started about 3 games into the season, played that one in the next, and then he was hurt for the season. I didn't see what the injury was, but I know he was sidelined with an ailment, so that kind of derailed last season. And now he comes to NIU. As Eddie mentioned, 6'3", 250. He's got build, and from what I saw from him in spring practices, he was not hesitant to, just take the ball and run it himself. And he's someone I would describe as a gunslinger. He's got the arm on him. It's just one of the biggest question marks about Jalen, whose nickname is actually Chance, if you didn't know that. He just needs to get adjusted to a new playbook because he is he's the newest addition to the QB room because with Hampton Holst being here, he's kind of needs to embrace the learning curve, get used to a new playbook, a new offense, as well as get used to the offensive coordinator Wesley Bashorner, who is now in his first full season as NIU's offensive coordinator after taking over at the start of conference play last season. So there's no question about the tangibles for Macon. It's more about the intangibles. And now Josh Holst, I believe he went to high school at Marengo. He had a bit of a dual threat there, but he was more of a passing guy, if you know what I mean there. And he knows his team well, but obviously Hampton's got the advantage as well as rapport. He's got the chemistry. He knows the playbook, having been in the system for 3 years, and he's very well adjusted to quarterbacks coach Eric Eidsness. So a lot of people can lean in the way that Hampton could be the starter, but there are certain caveats that kind of make this a bit more even. So Eddie, from what you know about this whole quarterback battle, how do you think it's going to shake out?
I don't think that NIU and Thomas Hammock are going to have an answer to start the year. So my prediction would be that Ethan Hampton would get the bid to start the year just because he has been here and he has been in that starting stage before.
Yeah.
But I will say I think he will be on thin ice in his first game. I think that because I think that Josh Holst and Jalen Macon will both have a chance to take over that spot. I would not be surprised if Josh Holst ended up taking over for Ethan Hampton, because what I've heard, he does look a lot more comfortable out there, and we know that Ethan Hampton does have the ability to succeed, but he also crumbles under pressure a little bit with those 4 interceptions against Toledo. And yeah, we know, watching Ethan Hampton play, he struggles with confidence sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit. And this is going to be something that could be worked on in the offseason, because in all those situations, he's more like thrown into the job. Because he didn't go in expecting to be the starter. He knew where his position was, QB2, to support Lombardi. But now, there's a battle where if you win, you are going to be the guy under center for NIU. And now, this first game of the season, NIU hosts Western Illinois, in-state rival, August 31st for the season opener. And now that game is a bit unique because Western Illinois, this is a team that has not won a game since the 2021 season. They've had back-to-back 0-11 seasons. So this is a team that you should just pave over, honestly.
Water.
Because this isn't like Eastern Illinois, where, you have a game that's close, a nighttime showdown. This is not Southern Illinois, where that team that had a pretty good defense and manages to hold NIU to 9 points in the 12-9 victory, beating us at Husky Stadium. Eddie, do you have any fun stories from that Southern Illinois game you want to share?
Oh my goodness. Well, so we all know that tailgates go on just I want to say east of Husky Stadium on the field.
Yeah,
I think
it's on
that's
the east side, yeah.
east side of the Husky Stadium field. And pulling for the home team in NIU as a fan, I told a lot of Southern Illinois fans how confident I was that NIU was going to win, and I bit my words on that one, of course. But yeah, I do think Western Illinois will be the perfect opportunity for NIU to get off on a good set forward, just for them to play Notre Dame the following game.
Oh, yeah.
So that will be.
You see, this Western Illinois, it's a unique opportunity, right? Because this is a team that's not good. So whoever you throw at a quarterback, this is a good chance for them to give a confidence booster. Like, let's say you throw Ethan Hampton out there. He throws for like 300 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns. That's a good confidence booster as you go to Notre Dame, Indiana to face the Fighting Irish in opposing territory for their opener. So obviously you go from
We're their home opener?
where we are their season opener. They open the season at home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so let's say the quarterback doesn't do well in the Western Illinois game, then maybe it's not because the thing about the head coach, Thomas Hammock, he's been pretty tight-lipped about anything that may be perceived to be a disadvantage to the team. He's very tight-lipped about injuries, and he has been very tight-lipped about this quarterback situation. So my thoughts are we're not going to find out who QB1 is until they take the field for that opener against Western Illinois. Because when it comes time for them to release the depth charts for that pregame press conference, it's probably going to be Ethan Hampton or Jalen Macon or Josh Holst. So we're not going to get a definitive answer there. And to say the quarterback stinks up that first game, then you throw someone else in. Maybe Hampton doesn't do well, Macon comes in, or Macon doesn't do well, Hampton comes in, or throw Holst in there. Because quarterback situation is very, how I like to describe it, is malleable. Nothing is set in stone when that first game comes because Hammock, while he is very loyal to his guys, that's one of the biggest things I noticed about him. He has a lot of loyalty, which is a pretty good trait, and it's more of a double-edged sword at the same time. But it's just more of, I don't think he's going to let his loyalty blind him for an entire season. And now, we also talk a lot about this Western Illinois game. I think this is also going to set the tone for the season. So, Eddie, what are your expectations for this first game? What do you need to see from this NIU team when Western Illinois comes to town? What do you need to see on the field?
I need to see a dominating offensive performance because NIU had a top 25 defense last year, I believe, right?
Yeah,
overall.
we did. Yeah.
And they had a very productive defense, and they were able to retain a good amount of those guys. So I think the defense is what I'm most confident in NIU about. So what I want to see from NIU to be impressed would be at least a 2-touchdown win, I would say.
2 touchdowns.
I would say I want to see us beat Western Illinois by 2 touchdowns, or at least just because I feel like last year against Southern Illinois, we put up 11 points.
9 points. Was it 12-9 or 12-11?
14-11.
It was 14-11. My bad.
Yeah.
14-11.
So I want to see basically what I mean is I want to see a better offensive performance, especially because we're retaining our 2 best offensive players, Ontario Brown and Trayvon Rudolph, who, I thought they were both going to leave. And which actually brings me into a good point. I think that is one thing kind of nice about the quarterback situation too, is I think this year may be one of their offense is most suited to help a quarterback who's learning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can lean on Ontario Brown and Gavin Williams in the run game. They still have Grayson Barnes.
Yeah, they still have Grayson Barnes.
Grayson Barnes, Trayvon Rudolph, that is a pretty well versed stack of offensive weapons. So I want to see those offensive weapons actually get to work and stomp Western Illinois.
Exactly, because Hammock is run first offense, which is not a surprise. He played running back when he was here at NIU, and he was probably on pace to make the NFL if he hadn't retired for the heart condition.
He was at Wisconsin for a while too, and now they're a little more West Coast, but they were ground and pound for.
They
forever.
had Monte Ball, Melvin Gordon, James White, he coached all those guys, and then when he was running backs coach at Baltimore, you have Ray Rice there, you have Kyle Juszczyk, Gus Bus, he got a year of that. So Now he brings the run first offense to NIU. This is his sixth season here. I mean, he's kind of gotten well into it because now we have a deep running back room. You have, as Eddie mentioned, you have Ontario Brown, one of the best running backs in the group of five, if you ask me. You have behind him Gavin Williams, a transfer from Iowa from last year. And then behind them, you have Justin Lynch.
Yeah, Justin Lynch, who didn't play last year. He redshirted, right?
He played a little bit last year, but he was I think he had a bit of an injury too, from what I heard. That was rumblings I heard. But he's a converted quarterback, and he's now a running back. And from what I've seen practice, they're kind of using him like Clint Rakovich, like more of a super back kind of role.
Oh, wow.
They've thrown him in like a fullback position in front of Ontario, and sometimes they split him out wide. So they became a bit versatile. And then Jalen Poe, who's going to be a redshirt freshman or sophomore this year. He had a bit of time last year, especially after Ontario's game against Western Michigan. He kind of came in for those last few plays of the game. But
I know Justin Lynch, he really served as almost like a spark plug for the NIU offense last year. I think he broke off a few big runs for a touchdown and just gave the offense a lot of energy, and I think that'll be really helpful to take some of the slack off of Ontario there.
Yeah, and he has definitely put on some muscle for us. He's definitely looking more like a running back, less like the quarterback we saw in 2022. And then obviously you had speedsters, Ontario Brown, Grayson Barnes is fast in his own right. So this is perfectly catered for
Jalen Johnson too. Right?
Jalen Johnson is also a receiver. Dame Partridge, punt returner. He's also a receiver too. So you've got options, and you've got something that can cater to a quarterback. And so with this Western game, like I know you said, you want to see him beat by at least 2 touchdowns, and I think that's a bit generous. Like for Western Illinois, for the caliber team that's coming into town, and the defense we have, because I think it's improved from top 25 to at least maybe top 20, top 15. Because even though we lost James Esther, we lose Tyler Jackson, Deron Gilbert, we got Christian Freeman from Southeast Missouri. I mean, I have a lot of faith in Demond Taylor Jr. and Devontae O'Malley. Yeah. I mean, I need him to see him beat.
We still have like Javon Bird, right?
Javon Bird, Sean Profit, back in your defense secondary, McCursell and Hanson as well. For Western Illinois, I need to see NIU win by at least 4 scores. If you can't manage that, then I think you go 3-9.
Do you think we give up a touchdown then, or what's your game score prediction then?
Game score, I'd say maybe 45-14 is what I could. That's about the lowest margin I could tolerate, because 45-14, this is a team you should smother, because your defense should have no problem against a mediocre FCS offense. And then offense, I mean, even though it is a question mark, you still got all the skill players around the QB question mark to help compensate for maybe that lack of experience under center, which you should be able to overcome, especially you have the home advantage too. So everything sets you up. And so with that, Edison, would you like to get a bit into kind of how you see the season playing out? Because we have a good slate this year. We go to Notre Dame and meet the Fighting Irish for the first time ever. And then about 3 weeks later, we go to North Carolina State to face former NIU head coach Dave Doran and quarterback Grayson McCall.
Yes, sir. And then the week after that, we play the newest addition to the MAC in the University of Massachusetts.
That's right.
So, Skyler, my thought process going into the season, I think NIU is a very big dark horse to win the MAC this year. I really think they have all the tools capable of winning the MAC, and I really think what it comes down to now, since the MAC is based off win percentage now, I think what it really comes down to is those matchups against Toledo and against Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, because with Miami and Toledo, those two appeared in the MAC championship game last year, Miami beating Toledo. And honestly, I agree. Like, this is a team that is definitely a dark horse, because in the MAC coaches preseason poll that came out a few weeks ago, I believe Miami was first. They were projected to defend their title. Toledo 2, and then NIU, Bowling Green were tied for 3rd. So I kind of see this as a 4-man race, though. I wouldn't be shocked to see Ohio, make some moves there too. They still have a good team, even though they've lost some key talent on the defensive side of the ball. And Curtis Rourke, the star quarterback of the MAC, goes to Indiana. Jordan's the Big Ten.
So, Skyler, how about we do our game-by-game score predictions then? Or not score predictions.
Just win-loss, rather. All right. So, Western Illinois, I think you and I can agree unanimously that this could be a W.
Yes, sir.
If not, that's a conversation we'll have another time.
And then going to South Bend to face off against Notre Dame, I don't think there's a chance that we win that game.
No, that's where I agree. I would lean that will be a loss, but One thing, this may be a pretty controversial take. Notre Dame is a winnable game. Now, for people who might be listening to this and be like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" Well, you have to think about Notre Dame, right? So this is going to be their season opener, their first real game action of 2024. We go to their house. Remember, they have a new quarterback this year, Riley Leonard. You lost Audric Estime. I don't remember who their running back is right now. And you lost several pieces of your offensive line. You lose your star left and right tackle to the draft. Your new left tackle is out for the season, so now you have to get another guy there too. And then the top 25 defense with NIU going against that, which could help kind of mitigate whatever offense they could throw at us. And then as far as NIU offense and Notre Dame defense matchup, we have Ontario Brown. We have a good running game that can wear that defense down. And passing, I don't see is going to be. We're not going to get much in that avenue because I think Benjamin Morrison is the start corner over there, and I don't see much in the passing game. But the running game, I think it's something we can manage. Do I think we'll lose? Yes. Do I think it's going to be a blowout? No. I see this more of a consolation prize. Like, if we make this within a 2-score game, I'm happy, especially for our first matchup.
And I'd like to see more than one touchdown put up on our half. I want to see us put 14 points up on the board, not just hold them to a low amount of points.
I think we could put 3 scores. I think that's what we can manage.
I am on the side. I do think, and this might be a hot take, I think Notre Dame is an easier game than NC State.
Actually, I kind of agree with you there.
I like NC State this year. I feel like, and that falls on obviously Grayson McCall, who came from Coastal Carolina, who we played in the Cure Bowl in 2021. Unfortunately, lost by 2-3 points, something like that.
Yeah, it was a very close game.
But he was a very sought after, probably the most sought after Group of 5 quarterback, and he's coming to North Carolina State.
Joins the Power 5. And so we kind of agree that Notre Dame, it'll be a loss, but I think it's going to be closer than some might expect. And then our MAC home opener, the Buffalo Bulls, come to Husky Stadium on September 21st. So how do you feel about that Buffalo game? They lose Cole Snyder to Eastern Michigan. Now they have, I think, a QB battle between Jack Shields from Old Dominion and CJ Agbana, who is the incumbent backup. I believe he's like their version of Ethan Hampton. So, and with the Bulls defense coming to DeKalb as well, just how do you think that stacks up?
I think that Thomas Hammock and the boys will be able to pull out the win against Buffalo. We haven't played them in 2 years, but we like to keep it close against Buffalo.
I think it was 3 years. 2021, we went to Buffalo.
2021, yeah.
Clay Rakovich, overtime touchdown. I remember you, Clint. Thank you so much for that.
But yeah, I want to say I think we can pull out the victory there, especially after the game against Notre Dame. I think if we are able to put up a fighting chance against Notre Dame, then we'll be able to carry that over into the next week and get our first win for the first MAC game of the year.
Yeah. I mean, it is a 2-week gap between Notre Dame and Buffalo because of a bye in week 3.
Oh, I didn't notice that, actually.
Yeah, they kind of snuck that in. But, Buffalo, I think it's a team we can beat, too. I think a 2-score win is reasonable because Buffalo is, by no means is going to roll over. That defense is one you need to respect in their own right. The offense, kind of like with us, question mark with their quarterback, but I think they've got enough where they can make this, a reasonable game. And then September 28th, we visit former head coach Dave Doran and Grayson McCall and Raleigh, North Carolina, and Eddie. That's a game we're going to go see, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm very excited to go and see that one. As much as I am excited to see it, I think the combination of the implementation of Grayson McCall will boost NC State quite a bit, and I do not see us winning that game. Like I said before, I think that'll be a harder game than Notre Dame. We're going to the south. It's a farther travel for the player. To Notre Dame, going down to North Carolina, they're traveling farther. It's just going to be a tough environment, and I don't think they can pull out the victory there. I think that'll be a 3-score loss, probably.
Yeah. And then you mentioned how NIU lost to Grayson McCall and the Chanticleers in the 2022 Cure Bowl, and that was on the heels of our MAC championship victory in 21 about a month earlier. But the thing is, the starters from that game in the 2021 are players that were on that team. The second youngest roster in the FBS by that time, they're now seniors. This is now their final years. So Grayson McCall has a bit of familiarity with those defensive players, so he knows the scheme a bit. And then obviously he's being coached by someone who was phenomenal here at NIU, Dave Doran. I believe he coaches 2 back-to-back MAC titles, maybe 1. I can't remember how the split goes, but he definitely was successful here, and that's part of why he got he coaches to the Orange Bowl, and then he got hired before, and then Rod Carey took over.
Yeah, there's a lot of familiar faces in NC State.
Yeah, there's a lot of familiar faces there. I agree. This is going to be a loss. This is going to be more of a trial. And I think this might be our first or second time facing NC State. We hardly ever go against the Wolfpack, but I think this is going to be probably our biggest loss of non-conference play, if not the entire season. Yeah. And then we finish off non-conference play at home against soon-to-be MAC cohorts UMass. So they will be joining the Mid-American Conference starting, I believe, July 1st, 2025. And so that would make the MAC a 13-team conference. And for UMass, that's a team that doesn't really concern me. I mean, they are an FBS independent right now, and they used to be a MAC-only football-only member of the Mid-American Conference. And so, I mean, the only name that really rings a bell from that UMass roster is going to be their quarterback. I believe he's going to be their starter, Tyson Famacon. He used to be a backup quarterback at Clemson with DJ Ugalele. I'm sure those announcers have found those last names. But, UMass.
That should be no problem for us.
That doesn't strike fear. I mean, is this going to be just roll them over? I don't think so, but I don't think we're going to be too close.
I will say one thing. This is a team who – they only won 2 games last year, I believe. One of those being against Merrimack, and then the other being against Army.
Not concerned that.
Yeah, and I think UMass might not necessarily be a rollover game, but I think we should be able to beat them by a considerable amount. Looking at some of the games they played last year, they played Arkansas State, who we played in the Camellia Bowl,
and beat,
and they lost. Yeah. We beat UMass. Unfortunately, cut this part out. Unfortunately for UMass lost to Arkansas State 52-28 this past regular season.
Ooh.
UMass also played Toledo, falling short 41-24, and Miami of Ohio 41-28. And now, of course, that is last season. But I think NIU will not have a problem facing UMass.
Yep, and then we go on the road for a MAC road opener. We go visit the Falcons of Bowling Green. That is going to be on October 12th on a Saturday, and that is a game I think is going to be pretty contentious because, as you mentioned earlier, Bowling Green is the other dark horse to take the MAC title this year. So you have NIU Bowling Green in opposing territory, and I think this is a game that's going to be close because they have a lot of talent over there. They have Terrion Stewart, who's up there with Ontario Brown in the G5 running back rankings, I'd say. You have a veteran quarterback in Connor Bazelak, transfer from Indiana, I want to say. And then, as well as, let's see, who else? The tight end. Probably one of, if not the best Group of 5 tight end, Harold Fannin Jr. He's going to, I would say he's better than Grayson Barnes. And Terry Brown, I say he's better than Terrion Stewart. But this is pretty even keeled on those 2 skill positions. And Bowling Green's defense, that's not one you sleep on either. I mean, it's not up there with like Miami or Toledo now, but that's one that I'm not going to just write off as a W, but I think it's one we can eke out.
Yeah, I really think that one will come down to the last drive.
Yeah. I could see us getting the old John Richardson treatment with a game-winning field goal. For either side, either we lose on one or we win on one. But this is going to be I want to call it a shootout.
Yeah.
Because those are both 2 good squads. And then homecoming, October 19th. Our rematch of the 115th homecoming game with Toledo comes to DeKalb.
And Skyler, this is, of course, Bowling Green was probably NIU's biggest test of the season when it comes to in-conference. But I think Toledo, I feel like, is a scarier opponent than they actually are. And I think we will actually come out on top beating Toledo at home. It would be a different story if we went to the Glass Bowl in Toledo. But, I mean, last season – we kept it close with them. We took it to the last second. We only lost by 3 points, correct?
I think 3 or 4 points. I think it was 35-31.
And that was off of Rocky Lombardi kind of – well, it wasn't necessarily just his fault, but he couldn't find anyone deep, and we ended up losing at the last drive of the game. But I think this year, after losing Toledo may seem like the scary opponent. I think facing them at home during homecoming, they lost their starting quarterback, starting wide receiver, and Quinion Mitchell, who, like you said earlier, went to the Eagles. They lost all three of those guys. So, and last year we kept it in within 3 points. I really think that we'll be able to come out on top on Toledo, given a good showing from the students at NIU and a good atmosphere at NIU. I think we'll be able to come out the win there.
Yeah. I think with Toledo, I do want to make a quick correction real quick. It wasn't the receiver they lost. So Toledo, they've got Marquez Cooper, he was a star at Kent State, goes to Ball State, and now he goes to San Diego State to reunite with his former head coach, Sean Lewis. And so the running back, now it's Vaughn Pemberton, RB2 last year. I want to put him in the upper echelon. And then quarterback, they actually moved away from Kyle Kelly. I don't know if you knew this, Eddie.
I did not know that.
They moved him to defensive back.
Wow.
And so he's a defensive back now, and now the QB2, Caden Samadza from last year, is now taking over at QB1. So you've got a little interesting matchup there to see how Caden Samadza does with a whole season. Well, hopefully a whole season. Pray for the knees, everybody. We don't like injuries here.
Yeah, never wish an injury on someone else.
Yeah.
Hey, while you were talking, I just noticed this little stretch of games of Ball State following Western Michigan and Akron seems like a pretty nice little easy run for NIU to pick up some wins. And saying that, I think we'll be able to beat Ball State this year.
Yeah. I mean, let's say you lose Bowling Green and Toledo back to back. There's a nice little rebound stretch. You have Ball State, at Western Michigan, and at home versus Akron. It's a nice stretch. Ball State and Western Michigan are teams you can beat reasonably. And then Akron,
They ought to beat Akron. And I don't know about you, Skyler, but I think we can say I think all three of those games should be a win.
All three of those games should be a win. I will agree there. Akron, I think, should be the biggest win because although we lost in 2022 at home pretty embarrassingly, we had a lot going against us. We were plagued by injuries. We had Never-Cremascoli at quarterback.
Yeah.
And it was more of the rag team.
Yeah. It reminds me of almost like the 2020 49er team where they went 6-10. They injured to hell.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And if you hadn't noticed already, he is a adamant 49ers fan.
Yeah. And then I think after that 3-game stretch, this is the biggest game of the year because now that the divisions were taken out of the MAC scheduling, and like you said, the 2 highest conference winning percentages automatically get the bid for the championship game, we're going to have to beat Miami of Ohio or Toledo, one of the two. We're going to have to beat one of the two. If we lose to both,
I think we're done.
Yeah. So I think I had us beating Toledo, and I personally think we would fall to Miami of Ohio, especially going on the road in mid-November. It's going to be getting colder. It's going to be that's when physicality matters, and I just think I don't know if this NIU team will be enough to handle Miami on the road.
Yeah, and as much as I had to say, I think Miami will be a loss too because I don't think we're going to the MAC championship this year because I think it will be a rematch Miami too because those teams are just so talented. Miami, and this was in the piece that's going to be in your print, the back to school edition that comes out the first week of classes for NIU students. You might want to pick up a copy. Hint. So with Miami, they return their star quarterback, Brett Gabbert, the younger brother of Blaine Gabbert, former Niners back. I'm sure you know Blaine.
Niners starter at one point, too.
Yes. You remember the Gabbert Kaepernick Chronicles?
Oh, Chip Kelly was the coach of Gabbert for a year, too.
Yeah, I don't want to trigger any PTSD for you, Eddie. But then on defensive side of the ball, you also have a Matt Salapak, who is probably the best linebacker in the MAC, if not the group, and I'd say up there in the group of 5 compiled rankings. And then Miami, and they return a lot more stars. Their offensive line, I believe they didn't lose anybody on that sideline. They do lose Gage Larvadane at receiver, and you lose Rashad Amos. But you still get chances. I think they have a guy from Purdue now.
I think Miami was kind of almost snubbed to be in the top 25 poll last year. I don't know if you remember, Toledo snuck in at 23 right before the MAC championship.
And then when they lost, they got knocked out. So should Miami have been in the top 25 at the end of last season? There's an argument, but remember.
Were they probably one of the 25 best?
They're top 30.
Yeah.
Top 25. That's where the committee comes into play. We're not on the committee. If there were,
not yet.
We would have made some changes. Alabama. Yeah. And then we finish the regular season at home November 30th. It's a Saturday against the Central Michigan Chippewas.
Hot take? I could see us losing this game.
Really?
Hot take. But actually, that is just straight off the gut. I believe with our roster's capabilities, we should be able to beat the game. But how I'm thinking is if we're coming off a loss against Miami, where we find out we aren't able to make the conference tournament, and I just feel like that might be a opportunity for NIU to get upset. But I think we should beat that team.
Yeah. So looking back at the predictions, I think we got 8-4 with losses to Notre Dame, North Carolina State, Toledo, and Miami that would keep us out of MAC title contention.
I will say I'm a 9-3. I was 9-3. I think we will beat Toledo. But okay. Skyler, you are 8-4.
8-4 for me, 9-3 for Eddie. So either way, I think that keeps us out of the MAC championship, but that does put us eligible for a bowl game.
Would that just give us the Camellia Bowl? No, just joking.
I think we've earned more than a Camellia Bowl by this point, but I also am not counting out any MAC championship, runs at this point. But long story short, this should be very interesting. We got a good slate of MAC opponents this year. No Ohio this year, which would have been interesting to see if you had Bowling Green, Toledo, Miami, and Ohio. But three of the top four, that's going to test us for sure.
Yeah.
And so, Eddie, just looking at the season overall, just which game are you most excited to watch, whether it be in-person Husky Stadium, MAC-Shin, or non-conference?
I think that's got to be that Toledo NIU game. I think the NIU fans are going to show out for homecoming, and I think we're going to be able to get a good attendance there. The homecoming festivities are always fun. And then, of course, that is the best MAC football you're going to be able to get. Because, of course, we get to play NC State and Notre Dame. But those are much more lopsided matchups. Like, of course, like we said, we do have a chance at taking on Notre Dame and taking on NC State. But Toledo has always been a dogfight, and I think this year will be no exception. I think it'll come down to the final minute, and I think it'll be must-see football.
I agree. For me, I think it's a Notre Dame game, partly because I'm going to be going to South Bend, Indiana for that game with our photo editor, Tim Dodge, and photographer, Totus Tuskili. So looking forward to that one. It's going to be my first time in a big stadium like that. So I'm looking forward to see how that plays out. But in the Toledo game, that's going to be marquee action. As far as midweek action goes, I should have mentioned this when we broke down the schedule. We have 3 action games this year, 1 at home. We're on the road against Western Michigan on November 6th. That's a Wednesday night. We have Wednesday, November 13th at that night. We have Akron at home. And then finishing off our midweek action slate, we go visit Miami on a Tuesday nights in Oxford, Ohio.
And that is also a must-see game. I think that's actually what I chose as the must-see game in the back-to-school print edition because
you did.
I mean, if it goes right, that's the season determiner if it goes right.
Yeah, and luckily for us, NIU does not have any action games on election night this year, folks. Remember, this is election year. Wrap up our schedule breakdown, and also we're gonna do our winding down for this episode. And once again, thank you all for listening. We've got a lot of content planned for this semester and this school year, so please stay tuned for that. I am Skyler Kiselllus, and I'm here with Eddie Miller. And this has been All-Star Husky Sports Podcast. We will see you next time.
Thank you for listening.